You probably watched Training Day for the action, the street wisdom, and Denzel's Oscar-winning performance. But behind the slick lines and loaded glances was something deeper. This wasn't just a movie about cops and criminals. It was a cautionary tale about power, decisions, and how fast one bad move can flip your whole life. The story follows Jake Hoyt, a clean-cut rookie trying to earn a spot in the LAPD narcotics unit. But to get in, he has to survive a 24-hour trial under Detective Alonzo Harris, a man who doesn't just blur the line between right and wrong, he erases it completely. What starts as a ride-along turns into a psychological war, and by the end, Jake realizes this wasn't training, it was survival. So let's break down 7 brutal lessons that Training Day tried to teach you. Lessons about ambition, loyalty, risk, and knowing when to walk away. Because real life, it doesn't come with a rewind button. Lesson 1. Ethics under pressure matter most. The first warning in Training Day hits fast. Jake's barely got into Alonzo's car before he's handed a joint and told to smoke. At first, he resists. He's a by-the-book rookie who just wants to do the right thing. But Alonzo isn't giving him a choice. He pressures him, threatens him, tells him the streets aren't safe for clean cops. Jake finally gives in and smokes it, only to find out it was laced with PCP. That's the first real lesson of the day. Not about drugs, not about crime, but about what happens when your ethics get tested for real. Alonzo knew exactly what he was doing. It wasn't about the weed, it was about control. He wanted to know how easily Jake could be bent, and Jake cracked. Not because he's weak, but because pressure makes everything murky. In that moment, the fear of saying no felt better than the risk of saying yes. That's real life. Sometimes a test comes wrapped in urgency or wrapped in loyalty, and if you're not solid on who you are, you'll fold. The scary part is, we all face these moments. Maybe not with a joint shoved in your face, but with choices that blur the line. A client wants you to skip a step. A boss asks you to stay silent. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You're just playing the game. But every compromise chips away at something, and eventually, someone else holds your leash. Jake didn't lose control when he smoked. He lost it when he stopped trusting his own instincts. That's what Alonzo wanted. Someone moldable. Someone who wouldn't challenge him later. That first yes opened the door for 100 more. The movie isn't telling you to be perfect. It's telling you to be ready. Pressure will come. People will push. If your values aren't locked in before the moment hits, they'll vanish when it does. And the cost isn't just your pride, it's your future. That's why the lesson lands so hard. When the heat's on, ethics matter more than ever. Lesson 2. Power without accountability crashes. Alonzo doesn't just abuse power. He's the poster child for what happens when power goes unchecked. From the second he picks up Jake in that bouncing Monte Carlo, he makes it clear that rules don't apply to him. He drives the wrong way through traffic, smokes on the job, and talks like a king. But kings fall when nobody can tell them no. Alonzo plays the game dirty. He steals from drug dealers, lies to the DEA, bribes judges, and bullies his way through the streets. And the scariest part, he's not just doing it for fun. He's running from something bigger, a $1 million debt to the Russian mob. Every move he makes is another desperate attempt to stay ahead of the fallout. That's not leadership. That's a time bomb without a badge. This is the illusion of unchecked power. It feels like freedom, but it always leads to self-destruction. Alonzo thinks intimidation is enough. He waves his gun, throws his badge around, and dares anyone to step up. But in the end, nobody shows up for him. Not his team, not the gangs, not the city he thought he owned. Because power without accountability isn't power. It's ego on borrowed time. In the real world, this shows up everywhere. From CEOs cooking the books to politicians who believe their title makes them untouchable. It always plays out the same. They rise fast, bend the rules, dodge accountability, then crash hard when the truth shows up. Alonzo's ending wasn't tragic, it was inevitable. Want to lead something real? Tie your power to structure. Let people question your decisions. Build systems that check your blind spots. Accountability isn't a weakness. It's what makes power sustainable. It's the thing that separates leaders from tyrants. Alonzo had every chance to build a legacy. He chose to build a lie instead. That's the warning Training Day gives us. If you want your power to last, put something stronger than fear underneath it. Lesson 3. Choose mentors, not manipulators. Alonzo talks like a mentor, walks like a boss, but underneath it all, he's a predator in plain clothes. He tells Jake he's gonna show him how the streets work, but what he really wants is someone to clean up his mess. From the jump, Alonzo positions himself as a guide. He calls the shots, sets the tone, and promises to fast-track Jake's career. But every lesson he teaches is just another step deeper into corruption. Smoke this, lie here, take this money, don't ask questions. That's not mentorship, that's grooming. Jake is hungry. He wants to move up, make an impact, earn respect. And that's exactly what Alonzo exploits. He dangles opportunity in front of him like bait, but what he's really doing is testing Jake's boundaries, seeing how far he can push him before he breaks. This dynamic is real. In business, life, or any hustle, you'll meet people who seem like mentors. They've got charm, experience, and influence. But if their mentorship comes with pressure to betray your values, it's not mentorship, it's manipulation. A real mentor challenges you to be better. They tell you when you're wrong, not just when you're useful. They build your confidence, not your dependence. Alonzo did the opposite. He used Jake's ambition as leverage and tried to turn him into an accessory. That's why the diner scene hits so hard. Jake tries to keep up. He laughs, plays along, takes the ride. But deep down, you see it. He's starting to realize that none of this is growth. It's a trap, a twisted loyalty test. By the time Jake says no, it's already almost too late. But that's the turning point. He stops looking for a shortcut and starts thinking for himself. The lesson? Don't give your future to someone else who uses fear as mentorship. Find people who elevate your standards, not just your status. If your mentor wouldn't be proud of the person they're making you become, you're learning from the wrong one. Alonzo wanted a puppet. Jake became a man instead. That's the real training day. Lesson 4. Reputation is currency. There's a moment in training day that seems small at first, but if you've been paying attention, it says everything about how the world really works. Alonzo turns to Jake and hits him with that unforgettable line. You want to go to jail or you want to go home? It's not just intimidation, it's strategy. Alonzo's entire game is built on fear, perception, and control. And in that moment, he's reminding Jake what matters most isn't truth or justice. It's how people see you, talk about you, and believe your story before you ever open your mouth. Throughout the film, Alonzo moves like a man who understands the value of reputation better than money. In his world, being respected or feared is the only real currency. He doesn't just kill Roger for the cash. He frames Jake in the process, planting drugs and manipulating the story so that if things ever go sideways, he walks away looking clean. It's a survival tactic rooted in image management, but the same thing that gives him power eventually strips it away. The streets hear what he did, his crew turns their backs, and when the Russians come for him, there's no one left to protect the name he once built. In the real world, this lesson hits even harder. Whether you're in business, building a personal brand, or just trying to keep your circle tight, your name travels faster than you do. A solid reputation opens doors long before your qualifications do, and once it's ruined, rebuilding it takes more than apologies or payouts. Companies collapse over scandal, careers end over a tweet, relationships crumble from dishonesty. The cost of repairing broken trust is always more than the cost of protecting it in the first place. Jake makes the hard call. He refuses to let Alonzo define him, and because of that, even when he walks away without the badge, he walks away with something more powerful, his name intact. That's the real win, protecting your reputation like it's the only thing you own, because sometimes it is. Lesson 5, don't gamble with the deep end. Near the final act of training day, we watch Alonzo spiral into desperation as he tries to fix a mistake that can't be undone. He's deep in debt to the Russian mob, and his plan to get out involves setting up Jake, robbing Roger, and running the streets one last time like they're his personal chessboard. It all culminates in that infamous poker scene, where every move feels like a bluff backed by arrogance. Alonzo doesn't have a real strategy. He has instincts, bravado, and a prayer, and that's exactly why it falls apart. The mistake wasn't the hustle, it was the gamble. Alonzo went all in without a safety net. He made deals with unstable allies, underestimated his enemies, and believed his past wins guaranteed future survival. But when you're in deep and you keep doubling down without a plan to pull back, eventually the house catches up. In his case, the house was the Russian mafia, and there was no one left to bail him out. This lesson applies everywhere, especially in how we handle risk. Whether you're investing money, starting a business, or taking career leaps, the problem isn't ambition, it's the absence of limits. People often chase big wins without building a buffer. They put everything into one trade, one project, one opportunity, believing the payoff will fix every problem. But when it fails, and sometimes it does, the crash is brutal. That's the cost of playing in the deep end with no float. Alonzo could have played smart. He could have built relationships, covered his debt with care, and escaped without destruction. Instead, he let urgency and ego decide his steps. Jake, once again, becomes the contrast. He survives not because he's lucky, but because he refuses to let short-term chaos erase long-term clarity. In life, always know your exit, understand your downside, prepare for what could go wrong, even when everything feels right. Playing big is fine, but only if you've planned how to survive the loss. That's how you stay in the game long enough to actually win. Lesson 6. Have a clear exit strategy. One of the most overlooked lessons in Training Day comes right at the end, when it's already too late for Alonzo to fix anything. After spending the entire film manipulating people, bending the law, and stacking enemies, he finally finds himself out of moves. With the Russians closing in and his city no longer on his side, he scrambles for a way out. He tries to run, to bribe, to bargain, but none of it works. The world has already made up its mind, and now it's Alonzo's turn to pay. This wasn't just about bad luck or a single mistake. It was the result of never thinking ahead. Alonzo never planned for what might happen if his schemes fell apart. He never had a clean exit, no fallback plan, no real way to pivot when the walls started closing in. He kept pushing forward as if he was invincible, but in the end, the very world he controlled turned on him, and he had no way out. Jake, on the other hand, made a choice. He could have gone along with the corruption and maybe even climbed the ranks faster, but instead, he took a risk and held on to what was right. He didn't just survive, he walked away clean. That wasn't luck, that was clarity. Jake knew what kind of man he wanted to be, and he didn't wait for the world to corner him before making that call. In real life, this lesson hits hard. Whether it's a job, a business, a relationship, or even a personal goal, waiting until everything collapses before deciding to change is a dangerous game. Having a clear exit strategy doesn't mean you're quitting early. It means you're smart enough to know when something isn't serving you anymore. It means having a plan to walk away on your own terms, not someone else's. You never want to be the person who's forced out with no backup. You want to be the one who saw it coming and made a clean, thoughtful transition. Alonzo didn't have that option. Jake did, and that made all the difference between a tragic downfall and a clean slate. Training Day doesn't tie things up neatly. It doesn't tell you who to root for or how to stay clean in a dirty world. What it does is show you what happens when you don't think ahead, when power becomes your only compass, when you gamble with ethics and expect loyalty from chaos. Jake Hoyt made it out, not because he was invincible, but because he had a line he wouldn't cross, even when it cost him, even when it almost killed him. That's what real power looks like. Not control, not fear, not hustle. Clarity, character, a code that doesn't shift when things get uncomfortable. Alonzo, he had a system built on smoke and mirrors, fear-based loyalty, fast cash, dead ends. And the second things stopped going his way, the whole thing crumbled. Not because the streets turned on him, but because he never built anything that could actually last. That's what Training Day tried to warn you about. Hustle, not just crooked cops, but the silent trade-offs we all make. The quick wins that turn into long-term losses. The times we let ambition drown out wisdom. And the moments we ignore red flags because we're chasing validation. Now it's your turn. Which of these lessons hit hardest for you? And how are you applying it in your own life? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're serious about becoming the kind of person who plays a long game and wins, hit that like button, subscribe, and watch the video on the screen for more free game.